Welcome to Comic Book Nation's The Pull List. I am your host, Matt Aguilar, and I have the amazing original, OG trio of Kofi Outlaw and Janelle Wheeler all here to talk about comics. What's up, guys?
Hi. Happy Valentine's Day.
Yay! Happy Valentine's Day! Woohoo!
Yay. Kofi's like, I'm chilling.
Awesome. I know that. So awesome. Well, we got a lot to talk about. There's some big things going on, both in the big two and plenty outside of the big two. So I want to make sure we get to as many comics as we can. So let's get things started with one we had to talk about, Batman number 143. If you joined us last episode, we talked about the kind of first chapter to Joker Year One in this Chip Zdarsky saga, but also blending of the night and everything that's kind of coalescing universe in the Batman world as it stands. And chapter 2 hit this week, and it was one of the things where I really wanted to talk Joker Year One with Janelle, because I know Joker is, if not her favorite character, one of her favorite characters. I'm not sure if that's changed since the last time I checked in. And this one really hits the gas on what's going on in the future, and also what's happening, kind of the lead up to the creation of the Joker, and the biggie here. And obviously we're going to get into light spoilers here. We're not going to outright spoil things, so don't worry about that. We're not going to spoil some big explanations here, but it is out there that the three Jokers is addressed in this book, and we do get an explanation here, so we will kind of do our best to dance around that. So for me, I mean, I just what Chip has been doing in this series with blending all of these different areas of the Batman lore he's built up, and he continues to find ways to really explore the characters as in their origins and people with, but while revealing new things. It doesn't really ever feel like a retread. It doesn't feel like, oh my God, I've seen this a million times. There's not the vaunted, the pearls drop again. How many times do I got to see Batman's parents die, right? Like, we've seen that over and over and over again. And while there are elements of that in these books, obviously with Joker and Ace Chemicals and things like that, they are used in very different ways. And he's finding new areas to explore there. And then, of course, painted against what the Bat-S that's happening in the future and all that stuff, it just makes something very unique. And if you were reading the other areas of Chip Zdarsky's Batman universe, namely the Night, I feel like you are rewarded with understanding even more and getting a better understanding. You don't have to, which is what I enjoy about this, but I feel like you do get a lot more out of it. Kofi, what are you thinking here with number 2? And what did you think? Obviously doing our best to dance around spoilers, but what did you think of how it addresses the three Jokers?
I think we talked about this when we kind of did part 1 in our discussion last week, and I said that I felt like we could see Chip Zdarsky kind of taking three Jokers and doing what he does with mythology, which is reworking this thing that's kind of gotten out of control into a concept that's much more manageable, about what it has to do with Joker and kind of rooting it back into some core lore about the character. And that's exactly what we got in this second chapter. It's kind of hard to talk about without getting into spoilers, but what they do here using a character that we saw from Batman the Night and how they set up Joker, not only who Joker is in these different personas of Joker, but how Joker kind of operates as a mental opposite to Batman is very interesting. I have always reservations about when you start to transform some of the stuff they're transforming, how that mythology will hold once a creator like Chip Zdarsky kind of steps away, and if it's something other people can sustain, because you are kind of changing the nature of Batman and the Joker a little bit into how they both kind of see the world and why they are so dogmatic in their kind of pursuits. And you're kind of making it an aspect of something else that they've kind of learned, and that's a different take on the characters. But it is very interesting to see and to deepen the idea of why Joker is this opposite to Batman and what that means. So I think this one also helps to clarify, where the first one is kind of an assault on the senses with the different time periods and things. Like in this one, it's a lot more settled and smooth. You know what you're kind of getting into. You know which each time period is like and what the storyline is there. And it's an ambitious kind of three-pronged story, but I like it more than I think I liked something like what was that? Bat and Cat, or what was that series with Batman and Catwoman? Like that was in the future.
It was actually Batman Catwoman. I think that's what they ended up renaming it.
Which again, same story format, was a Batman story over 3 time periods, and how confusing and all that got, and also featuring Joker. This is much more clear, and it's much more interesting about what it's setting up about Joker and how it relates to him and what's happening in this future time period.
Yeah, for sure.
I love listening to Kofi try not to spoil. It's one of my
I know it's hard, man. It's difficult.
But Kofi has a way. Like there's a Kofi way of not spoiling, and it's great. So my take on this, because yes, you are correct, Matt. Joker is one of my favorite characters. Do I need to read anything else this week? Because I love this so much. I don't nothing can live up. Everything's gonna suck compared to this. And I did not read last week's book, and I still was that invested in it and understood and comprehended and figured it out quite easily. I love this dude that we're showing on the screen right now.
Oh, yes.
He has such a cool part, and it's such a payoff at the end of that kind of like story with him. And Joker is frightening. No more hey, Joker's hot. No. Like, this is not Jared Leto Joker. This is scary, demented, twisted, and gross looking Joker. There's this one scene where he's like coming out of water.
Oh, yes.
And it is unbelievable. Like, if I was a little more brave, I would print that and frame it and put it on my wall, but like that would freak me out in the middle of the night. Like, but the artwork, oh my God, in that one part was just spectacular and so creepy. Like this is like the dark adult feeling comic book that I just kind of need in my life, and it has like reawakened my excitement for Batman books in general.
Yeah, it's that artwork. I love what they're doing with the different art styles. They're perfectly contrasted.
I thought it was a photo. I'm like, did they get someone to pose in the water as Joker? Because this is insane. Like these 2 pages. I just can't wait for everybody to see it.
And I can't say what it involves, but there's a scene later that happens where he's like coming out of the shadow, right? And he does something very important there. And that's, man, like talk about just nailing a scene. Like, my God, that's impressive. I think this is so far the people who have really kind of been along for the ride in the Zdarsky Batman mythology he's set up. I think it's been rewarded in the long term, and I'm very excited to see how we eventually land the plane. Right, because we still got a lot of things. Kofi mentions this last week. We have a lot of things happening, a lot of threads out there, and we are bringing a lot of them together already. But there's more, especially with this. There's a lot more to bring together, and so I'm curious how we get there. But this has been
like the takeaway is just, if you haven't checked it out yet, is like Joker is shining. Like this is if you love the Joker, this is like the moment. Like I'm just feeling the storyline for the Joker so much.
Well, and it's been mentioned in the comments, and I'm going to get to it here. And it is a big news day. We typically don't cover things outside of comics here, but when it drops right in the middle of your show, you're going to do it.
Nobody's listening.
We're going to do it. So Valentine's Day, Marvel Studios had a surprise and dropped a Fantastic Four casting confirmation. And so we've got
date change and Thunderbolts date change.
Live react from Janelle right now.
So we're going to do, Pedro Pascal has been confirmed. Vanessa Kirby, Ebon Moss, Backrack. I hope I'm saying that right. Backrack. I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly. And Joseph Quinn are officially the Fantastic Four, shared with a wonderful little art image. Fantastic Four is going to be in theaters July 25th of 2025. Thunderbolts got shifted to May 2nd, 2025. And then the Deadpool and Wolverine got its title updated to Deadpool and Wolverine. So lots of stuff happening on that side. But what a nice Valentine's Day present from Marvel. We got the official casting. And go check out the artwork too, because it's actually of the actors tied in. It's great. So yeah, how do we feel about that?
I just love the branding. The branding's so cool. It's like a vintage Valentine's Day card.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious about how they present the artwork for this and kind of like what it says about the aesthetic they could be going with for this.
Isn't it very WandaVision?
Yeah, very throwback, kitschy kind of
the Jetsons.
Yeah, so I'm kind of really curious about this, but this is the cast we heard rumored for a long time now. And so it's been through the ringer of public opinion on the internet. I think we're happy with pretty much all of these picks, right? Like, is there anybody?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Not happy with here.
I'm a believer of Joseph Quinn as Torch. I know that was a little debated online, but I think he's going to kill that role.
And people are wondering about Pedro Pascal, but Last of Us season 2 is already underway. Then Mandalorian doesn't require him to be there. Like, it's not like people keep thinking this man's so busy, but anybody who, if you know that this man is going to have time. So he's not that. This is kind of crazy, but it's a good cast. I mean, it's a solid ensemble. The most important thing is I can see all four of them doing really well on screen together. Right. Even is already proven to be a great ensemble player. He's like a standout of the Bear. Same with Joseph Quinn, who was with a talented young cast in Stranger Things and still was part of that cast, but stood out on his own. Vanessa Kirby's in her era, and I'm hoping we get full Pedro Pascal, Reed Richards, Maker, like the whole shebang bang, right? So it's crazy. But this is this is stuff we own. How long have we been doing I've been doing Fantastic Four casting news since the early 2010s, and then on some random ass Valentine's Day in 2024 in the middle of the comic here we go.
Also, can we just celebrate Herbie's in the photo? How dope is that? Herbie got like the official casting photo. He got props, man. It's awesome. I love Herbie,
awesome.
Man. I love those Jetsons aspects. I thought Jetsons actually was a perfect analogy because I love those Jetsons aspects of the Fantastic Four. I like the bathtub car. I like all those kind of dumb things that I love. I just don't like Reed Richards, so I'm hoping for Pascal to turn that character around for me like Robert Downey Jr. did Tony Stark, because that character sucks in the comics.
Oh no.
Sci-fi. Even the logo Marvel Studios is done in that old weird Technicolor logo. Like it's crazy.
But every one of these actors are just phenomenal. It feels so good to have really, really strong actors in these roles, because I feel like sometimes when they go with someone unknown in a leading role, you're kind of nervous about it. I think everyone's very territorial over Fantastic Four, so it feels good. I love seeing every single one of these actors in these roles. I'm very happy with this casting.
Woohoo! All right, let's get back to comics. Unless Marvel or DC have any other weird drops to do today. Let's move into the X-Men side of things. Fall of the House of X, number 2 hit. I think we talked about the first issue with this very same crew, because I remember Janelle really digging the first issue. Me and Kofi really dug it. And so issue 2 is, whereas issue 1 kind of was setting up a lot of the pieces in a very exciting way. Issue 2 is all right, the pieces get to do stuff. Let's put plans into action. And it's if you had, brood armies, get to actually just tear things up. Wolverine Colossus get to do what they do best. Oh my God. Polaris has, what a spotlight issue for her. There's so much happening here, and things move forward in so many different places, but I just really dug it. I mean, this is very much the opposite of what Powers is, just like those original series were. And so this is the one I feel like it's so easy to kind of get behind, and the momentum just moves, right? It's more action packed, but you're also just like dealing with the core characters. And whereas the other book kind of deals with some macro ideas and larger ideas. I dug it. How we feeling about this? Are you still hyped on this, Janelle?
Yeah, this is another one that's really hard not to spoil because there's just so much going on. There are so many like sub stories, like everybody in their particular place trying to handle what they're handling, trying to help the way that they need to help. And so it's kind of hard. You kind of pick your favorite and fixate on them. Like Polaris is so awesome. Like the power is so cool. Her entrance is so amazing. Like this, obviously, like this picture of the skull, like it's so powerful. It's really interesting. I feel like there's a lot of action, but also a lot of story development. Like there's just a lot going on. And so maybe if you're not super familiar with every single aspect of this, you're kind of going, wait, what? Why did we jump? What happened here? What happened there? But overall, just really awesome. Love seeing MODOK.
The legit MODOK.
Yeah. But yeah, I think this one, it's X-Men now that I'm getting used to it. It's bright and colorful and futuristic and spacey at this point. I love that they're in space. Anything spacey makes me happy. And yeah, it would have been spectacular if I read this first, but I read, our Batman book first, and it's just nothing can compare to me because all of my Joker senses were fulfilled. Like I just loved Joker so much. But I think it's a great read. It's rewarding. The action is picking up, and man, dude, some of these scenes, they're just the attacks and stuff. It's pretty cool.
Kofi, how you feeling?
I feel like it was kind of the weaker book of the week for me. It's one of those things where this book is surveying a lot of the other things that are happening without necessarily making me feel like too intrigued about the larger picture. There are some cool action scenes. This is very much a cool Polaris book for sure, where she could just really be a badass and kind of take that, and successor to Magneto role on directly. But overall, I feel like these are just kind of surveying things that were more interesting in the individual books. And it's kind of a big juxtaposition to something like Gang War, which had, I feel like, much more balance of making each installment of the story push the story forward while telling a focused kind of story in and of itself. This is more just moving all the pieces around in a big kind of almost cinematic way, but none of it felt too important or exciting. There's very little of some of the key characters that I've been most interested in. Like, while it's cool to see Polaris, like, what's happening with Jean and Apocalypse, and we barely get Cyclops, like that kind of stuff. Where is Xavier? Like all this stuff I'm more interested in kind of keeping track of in this issue, just kind of weirdly looks in at some of the secondary characters, I feel like. And so it was kind of a weird read for myself, but that's just me.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. So that's probably why I dug it more, I think, because I like seeing those other characters. I get tired of seeing the same 5 X-Men all the time. And Krakoa was really good about that, but there was a lot of series, right? So you could kind of take your pick. And when you're dealing with this and you're trying to bring all this together, it makes sense that you would have kind of the main people be the focus. But I've always been kind of partial to these weird, to the fun outliers, not even the weird ones, where we're not even talking about, Brew. We're talking about like Polaris is great. I love that we finally get some Firestar stuff, but like we don't actually get to see her yet. So I was bummed about that. It's always cool to see some of the Sinister clones. They're always fun. So yeah, I dug this. It was interesting. We're going to move quickly though, cause we got a lot to cover. The Infernals, #1. Now this one is very different than what I kind of typically go for in a book, but it's, you know, it was one of those things where like Ryan Parrott, who I'm a big fan of his work, is co-writing it, so I'm always going to give it a try, and I'm glad I did, because I mean, if you're not aware, the Infernals deals with the son of Satan. He's essentially he's been, you know, kind of running this huge criminal empire on Earth, but he has a terminal disease and he only has 1 month to live. So now we're dealing with essentially someone who, for all intents and purposes, you would have thought would be immortal. You would have thought would be kind of not have to deal with this, right? Has to deal with his mortality and now has to get like the ship in order. And really that comes down to a screwed up dysfunctional family that is in the midst of all of these crazy things that surround hell and demons. And yeah, very much like the cover is a huge thing in that regard, right? It's like this is like if a story of heaven and hell met Succession. You know, it's got little vibes of that in here. And I dug it. It took me a minute because they hit you with like a lot up front of like, you don't really get to know the character until later. And because the character is the son of Satan, it's not exactly like, you know, the most relatable or the easiest to kind of get in the mix with. But I really enjoyed this. I thought like by the end, we really start to see like who the kids are, all of their various vices, and, you know, how they would probably be strong in the era role because they got to take over things, right? Because who he wants to take over things cannot. So that is all stuff, by the way, that is not like super spoiler stuff. That's kind of in the description and previews and stuff. So there are some twists and stuff along the way, but I really dug it. It was just, but very out of my comfort zone in a way. Kofi, I know you had a chance to read this one. What do you think?
I thought it was a good launch book, and I thought it was a very interesting concept. We've seen the devil or son of Satan like stories a million times before, but this one using a lot of mythology about some of the darkest entities and various cultures and various religious practices and bringing them together into this family story. It's kind of like a screwed up Sandman meets like Succession, and it hooked me with just the various characters and what we learn about them and kind of how they're at once both powerful, but still you can see vulnerabilities and flaws in each of them, and like kind of what makes them really screwed up or interesting. So that them coming together and trying to do this family business is a very interesting concept and already creates a lot of intrigue for how they're both going to mess with each other on a personal level, but because of who they are and what they are, that family drama will radiate out and really have crazy world consequences with whether it's wars or famines or horrible things happening, just so they can prove which one's the most horrible and basically prove themselves in a job interview. It's
Yeah.
And there could be a lot of twists, and the book ends with a twist by kind of expanding a world in. It's in some ways I felt like I came away from this being like, I wish this is what Marvel's Gods was like. Like, I wish.
Oh, interesting.
And kind of understanding of what it's doing with mythology and these two separate forces and all of this stuff that we get by the end of this book suggested that we're going to, have happen. So yeah, great launch. We talk about first issues all the time, and this one was perfectly measured. You got to know the premise, the key characters they're interesting. And by the end, you had a hook that says, oh, this is still going to be an expanding world and we're going to learn more and it's still going to get more interesting and complicated. So good launch.
Yeah. Ryan Parrott, Noah Gardner, and John Pearson delivered a great debut. So I'm excited. Definitely recommend people to go check that out. So moving into some rapid fires, there was a lot of stuff this week. I'm going to kick things off with a real quick one. Green Lantern number 8. This one is this book has been a rehabilitation project for me for Hal Jordan. I've never been, it's known, I've never been the biggest Hal Jordan fan. He's the most popular Green Lantern, but I've always been a Kyle Rayner guy, right? But also just so many of the other Lanterns I just always found more interesting. This series though has brought me to a new appreciation of the character because the character is dealing with their own flaws and setbacks, and the book acknowledges them in fun ways, and he's grown a lot. And I've just grown to really appreciate the character in this series. And this continues that trend. We're also getting a lot of interesting mythology with the green and things that they're teasing for, the United planets and all that. So there's a lot of intrigue. There's a lot of mystery in the bigger picture, but Hal as a character is also becoming, I feel like, even more complex, and I'm appreciating that. And also the backup story, Ron Mars, Dale Eaglesham team up for a Kyle Rayner story in the backup. Not going to complain. Okay, he's my favorite. I'm unabashed. That's awesome. Let's move into a book that is completely tonally different. If you find this, I'm Already Dead, number 1, which I have. I know I didn't send it Janelle's way, but oh my God. you gotta read this. So this is,
he's gonna send it my way. I'm excited.
Yeah,
now.
this was, talk about a first issue. My God, like this it just hits you with the premise. It's very much Matt Kent. If you've read Ether, there's some Ether vibes to this. But essentially, like, there's another kind of planet dimension that humankind has been able to go through, and they've started to settle a colony on this other place. And then things go terribly wrong. It's supposed to be a routine thing. A group of people you meet on the ship there, including the first embedded reporter. And so it's going to be, there's this kind of typical kind of military group aspects to the characters, and you're kind of getting to know what they do best. None of that really matters because holy cow, like things go so wrong so quick. But this just like captivated me from the opening page to the end. I don't want to get into spoilers because a lot of this is like tied to directly things that happen, and it just makes a big impression. So I don't want anyone to lose that. But I got to the end and went, oh, there's no more. Like I literally was like, I could have read 6 more pages of that. So, Kofi, did you have a chance to check this one out?
I did. I found it another good, strong first issue. It wasn't too out of left field for me. It reminded me a lot of Daniel Warren Johnson's work in like Do a Power Bomb or the Transformers issue. It was very much kind of in that vein, but a very good kind of opening premise where you think it's going to start and be one thing, and then it very, very quickly turns to something else. And yeah, in terms of first issues, this one was like balls to the wall, just kind of tension and thrills, and sets up a very good. Is this a regular series, limited series? I don't know what they're going for here.
This is probably a limited mini series. Probably most of Kent's are.
Yeah, it looks like it'll have a good run as a mini series and a good arc to it.
Yeah, Dan McDade and Bill Crabtree on art and colors too. Like, wow, some scenes just like hit you in a very brutal way. I could not rave enough about that. If you're going to check out something, I mean, there was a lot of good things. One of the next books we'll move into actually is just real quick on it. Masterpiece number 3. I have been a huge fan of this series so far, and once again, like issue 3 for me, I just this premise and the lead, I just find so there's an amount of charm, like almost edgy charm to her that I just love. And I always find too that when I think it's going in a direction that I'm going, oh, I've seen this before, it just does one little tweak and it moves you somewhere else. Masterpiece is, I'm always also a big fan of Bendis and Malieve when they get together. This is another hit in that canon for them. Did you have a chance to check this one out, Kofi?
I did. I'm just jumping into this with issue 3. I like it.
Okay.
I'm not the biggest Bendis fan. We all know that, but like I like it enough. But I got to be honest, if this week in the kind of let's get the crew together type deal, I really liked Infernals more.
Gotcha. Yeah. And then I know, Janelle, you had a chance to check out one that I was actually super excited about on the Green Lantern side of things. Sinister Sons, number
Yeah.
1. This launched from a series of backup stories in Green Lantern, in the core Green Lantern series. So there was about 4 issues where the backup dealt with Stinson and the background, how he gets to the point of establishing, like, okay, like, I feel like my dad's Sinestro. I want to prove that to everybody. And so that was kind of built up there. And then this picks up literally right where that left off. I mean, it's a matter of days. I know you didn't have a chance to check out the backups because those were just happening. So what did you think? They fill you in here. There's also the other Sinister Son that comes from Kneel Before Zod, which is a series that is currently ongoing where they establish in, like, I think it was issue 0, where Zod's son is essentially kicked off the planet. So they do a really good job, I think, of summarizing those things. But what did you think? Because I'm very curious.
At first I thought they were the same person, just like in the future, or like maybe, I don't know, makeup or something. I don't know. But once I definitely got the gist of it, I was hooked. I think this is adorable. Like, I think this is going to be really fun to watch these 2 characters. They both have such chips on their shoulders,
Right.
and they are so, like, angsty teenager, like, angry kiddos, and it's hilarious to me. Like, I'm like, so this is an angsty teen who's mad at their parents. They might be older, but that's what it feels like. With incredible power and can do some crazy stuff, and a spaceship, like, and wanting to take over the universe, like the galaxy. So I think it's a big story, and I think it's going to be really, really fun to watch.
Yeah, I think it's just fun. And
Yeah.
I also love the stuff with oh my God, I'm blanking on his name. I always blank on, not Stinson, but General Zod's son. I
Yeah.
always blank on his name. But Lord Zod. Thank you. There we go.
Yeah.
But I think the conversation with the mom and the AI,
Yes.
like, that was, I thought they did a good job of encapsulating all the stuff that happened in that issue, but also bringing something new to it. I agree. I think this is super fun. Also, David LaFuente's artwork is always it was always a banger for me. I love it. So very excited for this. And then last, I will round it out with what's happening in the old Moon Knight side of the universe. Vengeance of Moon Knight number 2. Obviously, if you watched our previous breakdown of 30, you know that Mark Spector is dead. And now we have this new Moon Knight, and everyone's kind of immediate thought is, oh, it's Mark, right? It's got to be Mark coming into this. And this issue does its best to swerve you and convince you otherwise. And I think I still feel like it's Mark, or something's going on with Mark, but they did do a good job of planting some doubt there, and we'll see if they can kind of build and capitalize on it. But I will say, like, this book is just stunning. It's gorgeous. Like the Tigress sections where Tiger is fighting with this new Moon Knight, Hunter's Moon. I mean, this is just a showcase, and it has been a showcase on the series, but this is a showcase for Moon Knight. So really enjoying this. Curious to see how this lands as well, and if they can really deliver a twist when that mask does eventually come off that isn't like, oh, so it is Mark. It is what we thought. I'm very curious. All right, so before we get out of here, let's do record pass on the main 2 books here. So Batman number 143, Joker Year 1 Part 2. Kofi, yay or nay?
I'll say yeah.
Oh, sweet. Janelle?
A resounding yes.
Yeah, and I'm a big thumbs up too. That's a win. You go get that book. You go read that book, and then you go get the last issue and you read that too, because it's great. And then Fall, the House of X number 2. Janelle, thumbs up, thumbs down?
Thumbs up. Not as excited as my Joker, but thumbs up.
Kofi, thumbs up, thumbs down on this one?
Thumbs down.
Oh man, interesting. I'm gonna go thumbs up for this one. So I mean, hey, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. And Ben, that's a
Yeah.
pretty good week for comics. And of course, we've talked about a lot of other comics here. You should definitely check out. Crazily enough, I still had to trim it down. There's more that didn't make this list that are also great. So make sure to head to your local comic store and your digital platform of choice and talk comics. We always love to hear what you think, your feedback. Andrew, I saw the comment there. I will definitely check that out. Gone by Jack. I will give it a look. I haven't heard of it so far, so I will definitely look at that. Thank you guys for everything. Always checking out the show. We love to hear what you think. Until next time, deuces.